Something happened in these woods. Something that has never been explained and is happening again now.
Are you sensitive? Do you sense things? Do you sense sensitive things with your senses?
Who is watching Karen? A ghost? An alien? A man with a childlike mind?
Never meant to harm Karen. Loved Karen.
The past and the present intertwine like young, nubile teenagers holding hands in a deserted chapel.
You must not remove the blindfold.
What began as a childish game ended when a young girl vanished into thin air. Only Peter can help Derek help Karen. But who's going to help Peter help Derek help Karen?
I'm Mike. Do you want to talk about it?
The Watcher in the Woods.
I was surprised by this movie in many ways.
I gotta say, I was regretting my decision.
I think this would be something I'd show to my kids.
Oh, it's good to hear.
I think it's about a father's love for his child.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
And a complete stranger's love for that man's child.
Wore really ugly outfits. Puke yellow, prom night, pale blue, you know.
I don't even know where to start with this
Definitely
film.
not a movie I would consider watching unless you told me to. Hello, I'm Derek,
And I'm Peter.
and this is The Mog.
In this podcast, one of us suggests a beloved movie from our childhood for the other to watch, and then we talk about it. What made us laugh, what made us cry.
And whether or not it explains our fear of oboe players. You know, there's this oboe that plays. It's accompanied with the Watcher scenes in all of the scenes.
Yeah,
It's got this-
that oboe's everywhere. It is the Watcher, I think.
I had this theory that, like,
It's an oboe player.
yeah, and he was just in the corner,
The alternative title is The Oboe Player in the Woods.
and he's like, "Don't mind me." Do do do. Do do do.
From now on, when we get into this, we're going to be referring to, I was going to call it Evil Dead Cam, but it's going to be called Oboe Cam.
Was that your alternate title?
No, not quite. What was yours?
I had The Watcher in the Woods. Don't fear the oboe.
I had Some Demons Prefer Blondes
Oh.
and Evil Dead Zero.
All right. Evil Dead, man.
Yeah.
That was around this time, too.
Because, well, that camera shot, just the whole the monster is the camera thing.
Well, that reminded me of Alien, really.
Alien, really?
Yeah, you know, in Alien 3, how they do all that POV stuff.
Oh, Alien Cam, that's true. But Evil Dead was before Alien 3,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think.
No, I haven't really watched Evil Dead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they do the camera is the thing and it moves really fast and it's following people and they're looking at it.
awesome.
Yeah.
I have to watch that.
But it's oboe cam. Yeah, but I have a very important question apart from what movie we are talking about.
The movie is The Watcher in the Woods from 1980. It's one of yours.
And my question for you is, are you sensitive, Derek? Do you sense things?
I'm pretty much Jan.
You-
I'm pretty much her.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
Jan.
very blonde like that.
Yeah. I can see that. I can absolutely see you as a blonde.
For half the movie, I thought her name was Jen.
Yeah, and for half the movie, I thought the girl's name was Ali. But it's Ellie.
And Aylward, I'm still misspelling that. But I'll give a quick synopsis.
Yeah, please.
An American family move into a British country house only to encounter malevolent spirits. The ghost of the owner's daughter, long missing, torments the family's young girl.
Or is that really the case?
Is it?
Oh, because this is a little bit of a mystery. There is a little mystery element to
Yeah.
this, don't you think?
Oh, it's awesome. I love this.
You loved it?
Yeah.
Disney horror film.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you want to give the background?
Yeah. So basically, this is based on a book by Florence Engel Randall called A Watcher in the Woods. And she wrote it in 1976. And it was directed by John Howe and some uncredited directorial parts from Vincent cavity.
All right.
Lynn Holly Johnson is Jan Curtis, so she's the protagonist, and Kylie Richards as Ellie Curtis, who is her younger sister, and Betty Davis as Mrs. Aylward.
Yeah, she was so great, hey?
You liked her?
Oh, man.
Creepy, huh?
And she's so domineering. She's been acting since the 30s.
Yeah, well, I think they considered it a bit of a coup to get her.
Yeah.
And I think they pushed the film to come out early to coincide with her, like, 50 years in like, film or something.
All right. Wow, it's a milestone for her too.
Yeah. But did you get any background on this film?
Well, I just wondered about this. It's very strange. So it's a Disney horror film.
Yeah.
And the two are not synonymous. And I should have mentioned, this is our Halloween special.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's very fitting because we didn't plan it ahead of time.
No, it just has coincided. But by the time we finished editing, it probably will be well and truly past Halloween.
Yeah. It'll be Christmas next year.
Yeah, that's right. Welcome to the Christmas episode about Halloween.
Yeah, so John Howe, he was put on board for this because he did this horror film in 1973, The Legend of Hell House, and that looks really freaky. Like, there's just straight up skulls on the poster.
Have you actually seen it?
I haven't seen it. I'm scared by horror. You know this about me, right?
I do know that you have I have dragged you into a few scary films that you would not normally go near.
And so I went to watch this on Saturday night, and it's leading up to Halloween here, so everyone's dressed up, but it's also Oktoberfest, so there's this mix of slutty vampires and beer wenches just like wandering around. And so I chuck it on and started watching it, but the intro, man, it is so creepy.
I love
this
it.
Dark shot
I do.
of this tree, and that's all. And there's the music box tune, and it's so tight and it's just so freaky. Your imagination's just like, who's watching? You can see through, and it's like, oh, I just had to stop. Nope.
Really?
I'm stopping right now.
So is this basically going to be me explaining everything that happened in the film?
Pretty much.
Because you turned it off at that point.
Sorry.
The film is actually about woods. It's actually an agricultural film.
I had all these tree puns. Birches be tripping.
Yeah, I really like the opening shot of this with the shots of the woods, and they managed to get all the creepy trees and lots of. I've seen other more recent horror films, but none of them really have a go at actually enjoying the scariness of the woods. They are always bland woods that people set themselves in, I find.
Well, I haven't really. My mum used to watch a lot of horror, and so that's where I was scarred.
Oh.
And it reminded me of Dark Night of the Scarecrow, which is like this one that really freaked me out. And
right. Well, we'll have to do that one.
But yeah, like I was going to ask you, did this bring any other horror films to mind?
Yeah, it did. Yes, absolutely it did. There was a film called Frog Dreaming. I had to do a lot of searching to find out what it was because I remembered the film, but I could not figure out what the title was. And I had to go through a whole list of old movies from the 1980s in Australia because it's an Australian horror film.
Oh, it's Aussie.
But it's not quite a horror film. It's actually a bit like Watcher in the Woods in that it's a toned down horror film. It's not, lots of violence, and it's got kids involved and all of that type of stuff. And in fact, the main character in Frog Dreaming is the kid from E.T.
Is it really? They got him out to Australia.
Yeah, it's set in Australia. And did you know that the kid from E.T. is actually in The Haunting of Hill House, a Netflix series that came out?
Oh, right. As an adult?
Yeah. Yeah, as an adult.
Oh, wow.
No, they went back in time and pulled him forward into Sorry.
Is he good? How is he?
Yeah, he's good. Well, Frog Dreaming, I'm not so sure about, but The Haunting of Hill House was really good, and that'll scare you. So, yeah. You might need some company for that one, dude.
You got to come down to Sydney, man. Hold my hand. stroke my hair. It's quite long now.
Oh, God.
But this was 1980 in film, and this was the year of Empire Strikes Back, dude.
Yeah.
And the Blues Brothers, but also The Shining. And it was the year that Sir Alfred Hitchcock died, and there's a lot of Hitchcock influence in this, I feel.
Oh, really? I didn't.
I just got that vibe. I don't know,
Wow.
the suspense.
I guess so. I never really thought of it. I guess some of the music in it is a little bit reminiscent of some of that, isn't it?
Psycho, yeah. The music was by Stanley Myers, who did The Deer Hunter in 1978.
Oh, wow.
Which is a De Niro film.
Yeah.
And did you know there was a remake of this in 2017?
I did. I looked at the trailer for it, and it looks like halfway through the trailer they ran out of material.
Really? Yeah. I watched the whole thing.
Oh, really?
I did, but I must admit I sped it up at parts.
All right. What was it like? I didn't actually watch it.
Well, the thing is, do you remember the TV show Sabrina, the Teenage Witch from the 90s?
Yeah.
Melissa Joan Hart, the star of that, directed that film because she was such a big fan of the original.
I did look it up and I saw the director and I was trying to figure out where I'd seen that name before. So that was Sabrina directed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sabrina. And I loved her, man. I used to love that show.
That had an Angelica Houston in it as well.
All right.
Who was, the Addams Family. She was Morticia in...
yeah, that's it. That's who she was. I couldn't pick it.
Yeah, she was in other stuff as well, but that's...
Because she's aged quite a bit now. She's...
yeah, so have we.
We have too, yes.
Yeah, so what did you think of it?
I'll leave that to the end, but there is some... I wanted to ask you, before we get into your history... Do you know the controversy about this film?
I think that as soon as you look into this film, you can't avoid learning about the controversy because this film actually has 2 dates assigned to it. So we're saying 1980, and I was saying 1980 when I first looked at it, but it's actually 1980 and 1981.
Yeah.
Because... it only ran for a week in 1980.
It's crazy, right?
And got pulled from the theaters and replaced with Mary Poppins.
The re-release of Mary Poppins. It's crazy. This horror film is like after a week, nope. Mary Poppins. This is the Disney you knew.
Yeah, oh man. There was an alternative ending to this. In fact, they did a recut of the whole film and cut out a whole bunch of stuff about the occult and witchcraft. But they also cut out the end and completely changed it, which is why there's an uncredited director cameo for Vincent Micaviti, because he directed the ending, the new ending entirely, and that's the version that I watched. Is the new ending, so to speak, new.
Yeah.
And I'm glad because that's the ending I was familiar with, and I'm glad that that's the one because the other endings are pretty hilarious.
You've seen it then?
Oh, yeah. Did you want to talk about it when we get to Act 3, or do you want to talk about it now?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, let's do that.
Because it's batshit crazy.
But I did want to speak about the original opening because there was a different opening.
Yes.
Do you know?
Yes, we can talk about that as well. Yeah. You can, but let's talk about that in Act 1.
Oh, okay, right. Okay, gotcha.
Is that? Or we could just talk about it now.
No, that's good. So how has this film touched you?
So I actually, because it was Halloween and because this was probably about one of the, I don't know, we've done a few horror films, Alien and Poltergeist. I thought I would just I've always had a spooky bent. I wanted to look into my background with that. So I spoke with my parents about it.
Wow.
To get an idea of, why is it that I've always been into the supernatural and ghosts and all of that type of stuff. And it's actually my mum's fault.
Oh.
Because she has a background with ghosts and ghost stories and all of that with her parents.
Oh, really?
Because her granddad used to her father, my granddad, used to wake them up in the middle of the night to watch The Ghost Train, which is on another list of my mugs. It's like a 1940s sort of horror film that's based on a play.
Right.
And I had a picture book called Bumps in the Night, which had skeletons in it. And the first book that I learned to read from was a book called The Ghost at Number 13. And there was another book my mum said I really used to like, which was called One Night at Lottie's House. And I remember my parents actually, with that book, The Ghost at Number 13, I remember my parents teaching me it on holidays when I was on holidays in Caloundra. So, and I've been into, ghost stories and ghost books. I think it was Ghosts and Boggles or something was another book that my mum got for me. So I had always had a history of ghosts and spooky films. So that explains why we had so many videos at home that had scary films in it.
Wow.
Even though I was probably too young to watch some of them.
Yeah. Oh, so it's from your mum's side.
Yeah, so...
And this was included then, those films then?
Yeah, so this was another one of those VHSs that we had laying around. Luckily, we had the full movie for this one. And I used to love watching this film because of just the scary nature of it and, the scary woods and the unexplained aspects of it as well. Because as we're talking with the new ending, it's a lot more ambiguous than the old ending, which is truly horrifically terrible.
I thought you would have liked it.
Oh my gosh. It completely changed the genre of the film.
But it had the thing. I don't know.
Yeah, the thing. That was But there was also an element of Lovecraft sort of influences in this as well.
Yeah, that's what I thought you would have liked. That's what I wrote down.
But the funny thing is that even changing that ending, the new one still has that sort of Lovecraft feel to it as well, because it's set in the nature of otherworldly entities. It's not just about ghosts. So yeah.
Was there any other thing of your background that you wanted to bring up?
Well, mainly it was just that this brought up for me a lot of like, why is it that I love these films? Why do I keep looking them up? I remember, I've spoken in the past about Ghostbusters and there's Poltergeist. And a few more popped into my head while I was watching this. Things like I think it was called Boogity or something, which was another cheesy kids horror film. And
oh wow,
yeah, just kept bringing back all of these movies and things that I used to watch when I was a kid, and I used to love it all. And and
that's amazing. So you found out now, because it's always been a theme with you, is the horror.
Yeah, absolutely.
Started with our first episode, Alien.
Yep, absolutely. And in some ways, it's also something that's been a bonding experience for myself and my wife.
Yeah.
Because I got her into sort of that horror film. It's not really horror film genre. It's more paranormal-y type thing, because it's not the gore side of horror.
Yeah.
The Conjuring films and Insidious and Alien and all of that other stuff. But it's not like those other horror films like Saw or Hostel or any of that type of stuff.
Right, yeah. I'm glad you got to speak to your mum about it, get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, yeah.
We've still got to get to the ghost train.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. You'll enjoy that.
Yeah.
Because it's not anywhere near as scary as some of the others. But it's still pretty good. So, yeah, what did you think? So, Act 1 for you?
Oh, Bo, you didn't. Oh, Bo, you didn't. I gotta insert little oboe sound effects into this. Because I'm editing these now, so I can do that.
You did a great job with the ladder, man. They were really good. I mean, you had had a hard task to work with my voice.
I love the singing. It was great.
I'm terrible. So mine was, I'm looking at the girl in the mirror. She's asking me to save her soul.
Is that a line from a song?
Oh, okay.
I'm looking at the girl in the mirror. Ooh, she's asking me to save her soul. Ow!
Please cut that.
Shamo!
Oh, Shamo, come on.
It was the 80s. It would have been perfect. It was just a cameo with MJ.
I tell you what, if you can find it, you can overlay that music in the thing in the background of that. I had another one which was just,
something awful happened here. I can feel it. Something awful.
Oh, Jen.
Oh, Jen. She's a wonder.
She's a wonder. Like when she started out, I thought she was quite good because she's got some sort of depth to her looks. But then, then when it's very inconsistent as the movie progresses.
I think it was the way that they expressed their voices after a while was fairly high and extreme, do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. I mean, in general, the dialogue was quite good. Like, the sisters get introduced. Don't forget to leave a trail of pebbles so I can grab you before the wicked witch eats you up. And, they're smiling and there's chemistry. And if she lives in a gingerbread house, I'll eat it up. It's kind of...
Yeah, that's right. And there's this through line of Ellie and her complete desire to eat everything that she sees.
Yeah, it's cute. She reminded me of Lewis from Last Starfighter.
Oh, right.
Crapola.
Oh, yeah.
Just, irreverent.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. But she does, unlike Lewis, she probably serves a bit more of a plot device.
Yeah. But very early on, they introduced the Woods as like a very reoccurring character almost.
Yeah, and they do a really good job of that, I think. Like the way that they did the wind effects on it to get it moving like it's a living thing.
Absolutely. Stunning, yeah. And combined with the sounds of the oboe and the flutes. And there was some sort of synthy choir. Did you hear that?
Yes, a little bit.
Da-da.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I know it. Yeah, that's when they ran out of money for the...
But the stabbing strings is very reminiscent of Psycho.
That's true.
So Stanley Myers, he did a good job.
It was very music heavy, wasn't it? In terms of just that the creeping dread of the oboe and the synthy sound, the synthy strings, that string discordant sound to get you feeling uneasy. Yeah.
Oh, it's that pure 80s vibe.
It does have that. It's actually that kind of cusp of the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, I wrote that too.
Because there was a little bit of a difference. Like early 80s was a bit different from late 80s.
It was just coming out of the 70s because there's still lots of hair. And there's mop tops and fringes.
And still lots of seedy old men trying to look young.
Oh, yeah, with velveteen jackets. But the house is perfect for you. That's what you said yesterday.
Yeah, it's
isolated, secluded, I would say. I love that old woman, man, the real estate agent.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. She keeps trying to think of things to say. Yeah.
And that's where they introduced the POV camera of the Watcher. I didn't know it was an Evil Dead thing. Where it's hiding in the trees and it's sort of...
Yeah, it's like there's something... You're being the thing that's actually watching.
Yeah, I love that so much. And there's this sort of deep bass that they play. It's sort of like a pulsing. Did you hear that? Like, it sounded like a heartbeat almost.
Yeah. I must admit, I didn't notice it too much. But
so creepy.
I wasn't noting the music quite as much. But yeah, I can't forget the oboe because it's all present at all times.
And the castle looks creepy as heck. This English house.
And the chapel in the woods.
Oh my gosh. And the old woman shoots her an evil stare. Mrs. Aylward.
Oh, yeah. That's a great way. She turns up and she says, "Why didn't you call me?"
Oh, it's so good, hey?
I tried to call you.
I haven't left the house at all.
She's so great. And the youngest is wearing this weird silver jacket, though, like Grand Prix. I don't know what.
Yeah, that's right. It's just in a spaceship.
Yeah.
She just come back from NASA. They do a lot of hard and fast, almost character development in that very short period where they're looking at the house. Just there's a lot of banter between them all. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's like very quick, you know. She writes charming children's books, and what was he? He writes for the opera,
something like that. Yeah, and then he starts to play the piano, and she goes, "When you said opera, I thought he was a serious musician."
She looks genuinely shocked that he's playing jazz.
What does he say?
I have a soft touch late at night.
That's right.
And at that point, I couldn't quite get it because it's sort of just in the opening 10 minutes. But he's British, I gathered, and she's American, and the daughter's American.
Yeah.
And I sort of got the vibe that when he delivered that line, he's like the blueprint for Austin Powers. With the velvet jacket and the hair and his lines.
I have a very soft touch late at night. Do I make you horny?
Danger's my middle name.
He doesn't have too much of a presence.
I
though.
wish he was in it more. I loved him.
Yeah, he was pretty
You know
classic.
who he is?
No.
David McCallum. He's Ducky from NCIS.
Oh, he is too.
He's changed so much. He's a
Oh,
scientist
he's a good
now.
character. He's good at playing a character, though, isn't he?
Yeah.
You don't forget him because I don't even watch NCIS and I know who you're talking about.
But his father was a violinist and his mother was a cellist. And he played, guess what? The oboe.
Oh, really?
Did. I've been making that up. Because that was my other alternate theory, that the Watcher was Daddy Dearest.
Playing the oboe in the woods. Yeah, well, it did have a little bit of a mystery bent to it. They added the supernatural elements too quickly. You could have played to the stalker side of things if you wanted to.
Randy Daddy Dearest.
I'm going to kiss my girls to bed tonight.
I know what you're referring to there, because there's this bit where he kisses his daughter on the lips later on.
But yeah, so the dialogue comes quick and fast, and that's when Mrs. Aylwood, the old lady, Betty Davis, notices Jan, who's very blonde, and is quite surprised at her appearance and goes up to talk to her.
Yeah. And there's the jazz music still playing in the background, which was a nice touch because it lightens the mood a bit. But then you see this blue glow in the woods and the window cracks and it cuts her hand.
So she's on her own. Jan's on her own up in the bedroom, and Mrs. Aylwood doesn't complain at all that she just broke her window.
She's got this penetrating stare. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you sense things?
I'm sensing something. Yeah, that's right. Are you kind? Are you kind?
I try to be.
And sensitive.
Do you sense things?
Yeah. That stare, though, and the bangs, the blonde bangs, frame her face perfectly. It reminded me of Daft Punk's One More Time video.
Oh, right.
So 70s. But then she's opens up to her mom at that point. Can we keep looking? Something felt like something was watching me. And there was a lot of exposition there. Something awful happened here.
Yeah. And
Something awful. I can feel it. I can't do Jan at all.
Something awful.
I don't know what it is.
Something awful happened here. I can feel it. Something awful.
It was quite chilling, though. What did you think of Jan?
Actually, when the movie first started, I liked her as a character. I thought she was good. It's just that as it got on and she got more, I don't know, forceful, or she was very demanding of a lot of people, but there's something about it that just felt a bit too forced. I don't know. Like the way that she was talking to random strangers she'd never met, saying that they have to go to the chapel.
Yeah.
Get to the chapel.
Get to the chapel.
Yeah, but what did you think?
Yeah, her acting was a little inconsistent. She has these very intense stares when she's reacting. Like these close-up reaction shots, she holds the camera really well. But then when she delivers a line, "Isn't this a pretty place?" and looks at the sun and smiles. It's just like completely lost it.
Right.
There was this intensity that was there in the close-ups, but when she delivers the next line, I don't know if that's directing because she has it in her.
Right.
But then again, she didn't go on to make anything.
Yeah.
She went to make a Bond film for Your Eyes Only.
Oh, really?
But that was pretty much it after this.
Well, I know that she actually was originally an ice figure skater or something.
Yeah,
She
she's
won
got
like
the
a silver
physique for
gold
it.
medal or something.
Really?
a silver medal.
All right. Okay.
For something. So maybe that's why she held a good expression. You don't need to act on the ice.
Yeah.
Though I'll probably get complaints about that statement. So we've just spoken to the old lady and they're moving in now.
All right. Oh, no, there was a line, actually, Ellie. The kid just openly says it. Boy, Mrs. Elwood sure was creepy. I love that. You're thinking it, and you just come out of that last scene, and then she says it. It sort of breaks, there's that sense of humor.
It's an awareness of the thing, which it makes it a bit more realistic in some ways.
And the real estate agent, she had a daughter who disappeared. She inserts the thread there.
Yeah, that's right. That's how we get a little bit of her backstory without any more detail. The mystery begins.
Oh, and it builds up at that point. She's going to stay here. Is that what you wanted? She's talking into the woods. Oh, it's so good, hey?
Yeah.
And you look at the woods, there's just this knotted tree stump. You think that's what she's talking to. Yeah. And you're scanning, actually, the forest. You're looking for something. And the music creates this real tension. And at that point, there was this really quick, wide pan just looking up at the sky to the house. It's so disorienting, but I loved it. It's just like it really jolts you. You just you're not watching a Disney film at this point with little things like that.
Yeah.
And I realized, this is 10 minutes. This is like the best intro you could possibly have for a film.
And it's actually a very classic horror film entry. A lot of them start with driving in a car to a place. Like even some of the most well-known and arguably best horror films like The Shining start off in a car going to a place. It's where there's motion. Some of the plot can be discussed in the car. It often starts that way, but it's just whether it's done well or not.
Yeah. And The Shining was this year. It was like the same year as this. So they're in the same ballpark.
Maybe they borrowed the car. I don't know what I'm talking about. And then it cuts to them moving in, and that's when she's setting up a mirror.
Right. It was the mum's mirror as well. And I liked that there was little details like, move the lamp in here with the rest of my writing things, just to sort of ground that she was a writer. I don't know. Little things like that impressed me.
Those little things, I don't even notice them, so I'm glad you noticed. I was also very aware of how much I've watched this film as I started watching it.
Oh, yeah.
Just because it was just so much, it was hard for me to have an opinion because I was just so familiar with it.
You know who else watched this film a lot? Melissa Joan Hart. Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
That's right. I think she's about my age.
She might be, actually.
But I love the trick with the where she looks in the mirror and she can't actually see herself.
It was a great effect, yeah. And then the next cut, there's the ghost, and she was blindfolded.
How did you find that?
Oh yeah, it was freaky. It was freaky, but it wasn't as jump scary as modern films these days.
Yeah, these days they always supplement that with a sound that they would have added a lot of rumbling bass before the glass cracked.
Oh,
and then they would have shocked your ears with some type of loud sound.
Oh, right.
They actually did a few jump scares in this.
There was. Yeah. Well, I got a jump scare actually when the youngest jumps out in the mask.
That's right.
Just next to Jan. That came out of nowhere and that scared me.
Yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah, there's a few things like that they do, but they don't. At least they don't supplement it with those sound effects in those ones because those are fake jump scares. They're a tension relieving jump scare in that if there was a build up in tension, they relieve it, but at the same time, it's a false one. There's no actual danger that actually was as a result of that.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But they do a few of those.
Do you think it adds to it?
Oh yeah, I think it does. Yeah, I think it also helps keep you on your toes, makes you think that something could happen.
Yeah.
Because I think you do need that. Otherwise, it might feel like it's plotting a bit.
See, I got that feeling actually from the very intro shot, that tree, because it's a very tight shot. And it's sort of ambiguous as to, you're thinking something can jump out at you from the tree. It's like that shot becomes very familiar.
Yeah, and they reiterate it all the time with scenes of the woods.
Yeah.
From there, basically, I went from the shot of the woods to puppies for sale.
Oh, right. I did notice in her bedroom that she's got a poster of the Fonz from Happy Days, Henry Winkler. That was awesome. So in the midst of this horror film, you got the Fonz going, hey. Hey.
It's just hard to fathom that that's actually the equivalent of having some hot guy on poster
Henry
on your
Winkler,
wall.
right?
It's just like
But there was that creepy
terrible.
shot then of the old woman taking the lamp out of the woods as well. I like that a lot because you don't know where she's going and what she's doing.
Yeah. Everyone's motives are held as ambiguously as possible as things go on.
It's that mystery. Hey, I just love that.
Yeah, and you're going to have to tell me how you felt about the mystery because I know exactly what was going to happen and I've seen it since I was a child. So I didn't know if there was any suspense built up around any mystery.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. She was very ambiguous in her motives and she didn't give anything away. She's got this face that just like could go either way. I love that about Betty Davis.
Yeah, and she certainly was a very charming woman in this film. But yeah, it's Puppies for Sale. So
And there was a quick sound design bit there where it's got a cow mooing, rooster, cock-a-doodle doing.
I didn't notice that. Like really fake.
It's the best thing. Puppies so cool. They're on a farm.
Yeah, that's right. For those who are blind, we know on a farm. And they're getting a puppy. And some of the characters just get introduced.
Yeah, like Mike.
Mike is there. Who is Mike? He's Mike.
He's Mike. I don't think you need it. It was... Yeah.
No, you don't. It's just like he's Mike. He's the love interest, but it's not like a really strong love interest. It's just like they're into each other.
Yeah, you can see it. Hey, I like that. It felt very natural. Good chemistry between the two of them.
It wasn't. Yeah. I like those. I like those things where there's a relationship that builds, but it doesn't have to be supplemented by kissing and all of that other stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
It seems a bit more natural that way.
And at this point, Ellie does the very red rum moment.
Yeah.
With Nerek.
Yeah, Red. So Shining came out the same period of time, and you've got Nerek and Karen and Red Rum and Murder.
There's something going on. Hey.
Yeah.
A little bit of espionage. Disney
I didn't
espionage.
think of that. Yeah, someone was sitting in someone else's.
It's like the Russians versus the Americans. We've got to put out this film first. We'll just slap together this ending however we can. So
that's when, and we also get introduced to the concept that Ellie is going to get possessed consistently throughout this film.
Yeah. She did a good job, Ellie.
Yeah, she did.
She was convincing.
Though she did blame everyone else for her acting weirdly. Like she'd say, "Oh, why did you do that? Because you told me. I didn't tell you anything." Yes, you did. It was the dog. It was the dog.
It was Nerek.
Oh gosh,
Nerek.
Yeah, that's a terrible name. There you go.
But I like how they use all of these really quick zoom shots. You don't see that much anymore.
They did do that. They did the what is it? It's like the martial arts style zoom in.
Yeah, that's it. Kung Fu thing. That's what it's from. But you don't see that much anymore.
No, you don't. I think there's a reason for that. It doesn't really work. I love it. I love it even more when they zoom in and then zoom out and then zoom in again. That's just
bouncing
amazing.
forth, back and forth, like a bungee cord. But yeah, the next sort of big suspenseful moment is when Ellie is playing with Nerek in the woods, and she sort of runs off after the car, and you don't know where she went, and Jan sort of is trying to find her, and it's this quiet of the woods, and all you hear is just the radio. I love that music on the radio. It was like this wah guitar, 70s sort of funk.
It was like wah on a wah guitar. It was like double the wah.
Double wah. And it's just the radio, though. There's tension in that silence. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, so she then goes for a walk into the woods looking for Ellie. And that's when you're getting encroached by the woods and you get that feeling going on. And,
Ellie! Ellie!
Oh, gosh,
Ellie, please! That's the sound of the wind.
Oh, no, wait up. That's Tom Colley. Sorry. And yeah, she does find him. And once again, Ellie blames the dog for her doing something wrong.
Yeah, and they hear the music as well. The same theme from the music box at the start.
That's right. And Ellie thinks that Jan's humming it, but she's not.
And there they see a blue ring in the water.
Yeah.
And it was very mysterious. You don't know whether it's paranormal or, sci-fi at this point. It could go either way.
Well, there's that sound that goes with it.
Yeah.
Like that sort of weird sound, which I really
very
like.
War of the World.
Yeah.
It's like that sort of ray gun.
Yeah, it's like it's a fairly unique sound, actually. I haven't heard a sound like it. It's like crackly, but also has a bass hum to it. But yeah, you hear that, and she looks into the water, and then another flash, and she falls in.
I had that she gets force pushed into the water. It's like boom.
It's funny that you should say that because it made me think of the Caravan of Courage.
Oh, right. That was a favorite of mine. The Ewok Adventure.
Oh, it's terrible. But I think there's a scene in there where he gets trapped underneath the water or something.
Yeah.
And he can't get out.
I love that scene though, where the Mrs. Airwood appears, and they intertwine between these two extreme POV cameras. Like it's her face, then the old woman's face, and she's like, bubbles, and she's red in the face. It's really violent sort of cuts between the two. It really accentuated the drama there.
And then it cuts just like that to Ellie talking to her, like she's just woken up.
She had to. She saved your life. And so that was my act 2.
Yeah, me too.
Oboe? Nah, it's more of a bassoon if you ask me. Bassooner rather than later. This is awful.
I really have to prepare myself for these parts. I don't know why I'm surprised. Why am I surprised? I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Oboe? I don't know. I don't even know. What was your act 2?
Well, Circle of Our Threesome. But there were so many other Tom Colley quotes I could have done.
Oh, right. I loved old Tom Bombadil.
Never meant to hurt Karen. Love Karen. Don't like the dead bird.
He's such a great character.
He is. We can get to him. Oh, Tom will make it right. Love it. So anyway, the reason that Aylwood was stabbing her with her branch was to get her loose from branches she was caught under in the water that she fell into.
So at that point, Jan opens up to Mrs. Elwood and admits that she saw the ghost in the mirror. And then Mrs. Elwood very dramatically softens at that point. You saw her? And this is when Jan leads in and asks, can you tell me what happened to her, how she disappeared?
Yeah.
And, this is 27 minutes in, and Bette Davis, it's all in the eyes. It's sort of this subtle, but sometimes not so subtle. It's a stares, but you're glued to it.
Yeah. And she's got a very intense expression, and you start to get an understanding of why, beyond just her being a creepy old woman. It's like there's a reason for that, and you start to understand what her side of the story is.
Absolutely. And then at this point, it's the most elaborate flashback in movie history. It was like a different movie. It was young Mrs. Elwood, right. Mary, John, and Tom. And who are these people? What's going on? It was like... But it was the whole transition with the lightning and the bell tower, and
they're running out of the chapel, and there's the burning down of the chapel, and and you get introduced to these characters that you haven't been introduced to or heard about before until half an hour into the movie.
I was like, yeah, I didn't know what was going on. But I was running with it. You don't really have time because she's looking for her daughter and you're with her. And I read this little bit of trivia that she actually shot those scenes with makeup to look 30 years younger.
That's
Betty Davis.
rubbish.
And the director sort of, because it was Betty Davis, he said, okay, we'll let you do this. But then they had to have a conversation saying that, no, Betty, this isn't going to fly. And then she, to her credit, she said, you're goddamn right. No, it's fun.
I didn't hear any of that. I didn't find that anywhere.
I can still imagine that there.
And that's an awkward conversation.
It is, right? After shooting it all.
And this movie should have been called the reshoots in the woods. But
I love that how it exits that is the flames of the bell tower and the flames of just behind Betty Davis' face.
And the flames of the fire.
That transition. You don't see that so often either anymore. It's a very 80s thing, I think.
Yeah. Works though.
Yeah, absolutely works. I love it. It's very inventive.
Yeah.
And she tells the family at this point, but the mum is skeptical.
Yeah. She's not a big fan.
Yeah.
Probably not too happy that her daughter almost drowned.
And where is the dad? Is the dad still away?
I think he hasn't left yet.
Oh, he hasn't left. Okay.
No, because remember, there's the bike scene after that.
Oh, okay. So yes, this is the motocross.
And they say she seems less moody today. I wonder why, after she almost died.
Oh, right. Yeah, there's that line in there.
Yeah, the wife says to the husband, she seems less moody today.
But he says that's what she needs. It'll do her good. Night on shining motorcycle.
Yeah.
He's so seedy, though. I always think of him, Austin.
He's pretty easy. He's pretty easy going. Oh, man. What you need is a good boyfriend. And I love it. Ellie comes up and she goes, how many sandwiches can we each have? And he goes, 4 for me, 1 for you.
And I love those tire shots, man, of the motorbikes. That was a bit inner space. And it wakes you up, like the noise of the chase scene.
It's true. It's another one. They do a lot of loud cuts to these new environments.
I found...
like the new scene is very abrupt.
I found that it injects a lot of energy with the color and the movement.
That's true. That's true.
And I was wondering about Mike at this point. It might be none of my business. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I wrote that too. It's like he's having a conversation with himself. It's like, I don't really care if it's none of your business. It might be none of my business, but you want to talk about it. You want to talk.
I love that though. Mike with the mop top and the British accent, he was so dreamy. It actually reminded me a lot of the guy Harvey from Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And I thought maybe there's not a coincidence because Melissa Joan Hart loved this film.
He is very dashing, isn't he, Mr. Mike?
Do you want to talk about it? And you find out...
Would you like to come back to my place and talk about it? I have a farm. I'm a farmhand.
And Mike's mum is Mary Pierce at this point. You find out who Mary is. And they're trying to dig up what really happened to Karen Elwood.
Yeah. And while they're watching... Oh, hang on. Was this before or after?
I'm skipping around.
Yeah. So just before just before that, Jan almost died. But we can move on.
A small plot point, yeah.
She almost gets hit by a bike.
Yeah.
The bike goes off the rails and the Watcher in the Woods intervenes, possesses Ellie and makes Ellie scream for Jan to come and get off a rock and come to her. And as she does so, the bike crashes.
Right. Yes.
So something's protecting Jan.
Yeah.
It's
not the oboe player though. There was no oboes inside there.
No, there wasn't. I can understand why there's a need to gloss past it. We need to get more oboe going.
But so back to where I was sort of at was where Mary was she was revealing that we were just larking about. We ran out. At least 3 of us did. And I've never been back that place again.
She's such a coward.
Mary, man, what was up with her? She was the weakest
Oh,
link.
God. Literally. Oh, God.
I had that line later. I had to give it up now.
Well, yeah. And she talks about it being John Keller's idea. And it just, like, I can't tell if John Keller, it sounds more like a porno name or like a muesli name. Something, or an
Kellogg's.
alcohol, Kellogg's, John Keller's cornflakes.
Oh, yeah, Welsh sort of whiskey.
Yeah, John Keller's. Johnson.
But at that point, the dad kisses her on the lips. And that's all I wrote.
Do you know what? I never even noticed it.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah,
This is
and it's the
so
sort of thing
strange.
I would normally notice, but no, didn't notice it at all. Who did he kiss?
Jan.
Oh, right.
Yeah. It was a little bit Austin. Go on, give daddy a kiss on the lips then.
Give daddy a big old peck on the cheek. Or the tongue.
But I like yeah, they're in the car and he's heading off, isn't he?
Yeah, he's heading off to the opera to keep his musicians employed. And they end up going horse riding, which I kind of liked. I liked that scene.
And the horses get spooked. And he does it almost sounds like an Enid Blyton thing, a famous five where, oh, come on, let's go into the woods.
I don't think we should, Mike.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, you're not a coward, are you?
Yeah.
George, you're a bit of a girl.
Yeah, right. Yeah, old Mike was the one instigating that. And it was Snowball the horse and Coco.
I wrote those two. Snowball and Coco. Yeah. And so Mike goes to save Ellie and Jan is left on her own to try to survive.
And Coco sort of runs off and leaves her at the church.
With a dirty old man.
And the oboist in the church.
Would he be the bassoonist if the dad is the oboe?
Yeah, true.
Or is it the bassonist?
It was a wind quintet. But I love the camera angles in the church. She's wearing this bright red shirt and it all looks so great. It looks up at the stained glass and like you've got these low wide shots. It's really cinematic. I should mention the cinematographer at this point, Alan Hume. He did basically a lot of the Bond films around this time. Octopussy, A View to Kill, For Your Eyes Only.
Really?
But also Return of the Jedi.
Oh!
My most favorite film of all time.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
It's interesting where there's these like connections between people because you said that she went into one of the Bond films as well.
She was in this film, yeah, Time to Kill.
Yeah.
So same cinematographer. So yeah, there's a lot of links moving forward. That was 1981, so that was the next year.
Right. Oh wow.
Yeah, it's cool.
And is this the point where they go into the church?
Yeah, and then she sees the coffin with
and it's got
cracked open lid, and then she sees the ghost of Karen blindfolded with the psycho strings playing.
Yeah, it's good. I actually like that scene.
Oh, I loved it, but very briefly only. And then when she moves in closer to inspect, a bird flies out directly at her face with the sound effect of a clucking chicken. I'm pretty sure they got all the sound effects from Disney's cartoons.
They got it from Mary Poppins.
But it was very Hitchcock, I thought at that point with the birds.
Yeah. There is a lot of bird stuff going on, isn't there? Because she sees a crow later on, helps a crow.
And I didn't know that it was Tom at this point, but I just had groundskeeper Willie appears. And he runs off awkwardly when Mike appears.
Yeah, that's right. This is my opportunity. Oh, bugger, there's another man there.
Oh, bugger. Better run off then. Run. Run, Tom.
Better
run.
move on. You're right. Yeah, Tom Colley did remind me of like a British Forrest Gump.
He did, right? When he gets dialogue later.
Or what's the one from Tropic Thunder.
Oh,
Simple Jack.
Simple Jack. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So the question is, did he go full retard?
He was close. He was close, to be honest.
Because so they see a reflection. They see Karen's face in the coffin. Well, she does, and Mike doesn't believe her.
And Mike's like, "Are you okay? Do you want to talk about it?"
Yeah, that's right. He doesn't. all I thought, like, and she was getting more, like, the stuff that she was saying was a bit more weird and a little bit more out there. And I was just thinking, Mike just wants to jump on her bones.
Yeah.
Because she's going, "Don't you see? She needs my help." And it's just out of, like, suddenly she's convinced that a person who's been missing all this time needs her help. And Mike's like, "Yeah, I'm still in."
He's still got a chance. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah.
But actually, at this point, I turned on subtitles because I couldn't really get the dialogue, and I realized only at this point it was Jan. I always thought it was Jen this whole movie. No, it's Jan. Shout out to this point to Alex Jan, who I just thought of for the rest of this film. But then it's starting to get into geometry, like circles and triangles. And
did you pick up on what it was about?
No, actually. I was, only until the end that it was sort of revealed as the eclipse.
Yep.
But I thought it could have been that Tom was a geometry teacher in a past life. He's like, circles, triangles.
Oh, I'm just thinking about all the Tom quotes. "Nearly right now, ain't you? When I finds him like that there, dead, I buries him."
We like peas and carrots, Karen and I. Couldn't separate us. Like peas and carrots.
Yeah, he just keeps going with these quotes. She goes, "Oh, because Karen goes, Karen's trapped. Awful things, traps." There's awful things, traps. Okay.
They hurt.
They hurt. Awful things, traps. They hurt. Oh, man.
Old Tom will make it right.
No.
This is line.
Old Tom will make it right.
He was so good. I liked him.
Oh, man. He was awesome.
Yeah.
I loved him. He was so great. Never found Karen. Looked and looked. Really right now, ain't ya? Not like them poor little ones there.
And so, speaking of Tom, he's meeting with Mr. Keller at this point.
Yeah, that's all those quotes are later on.
And he goes, "Now I told you never to talk about that night. Get a hold of yourself, man." And he's like shaking him. I love that.
Get a hold of yourself. He sounds constipated the whole way through it.
I just love that shaking. You don't see that enough. Get a hold of yourself. And then I guess we're moving quickly along to the theme park where it's Mike, and he's like already got Jan's got her arm around Mike, and he's like, "Works every time." He's so snooty. But the nun kind of freaked me, actually. That was a jump scare in the horror ride.
That's right. Yeah, and they cut to the fake jump scare.
Yeah.
With the nun. And she goes into the Hall of Mirrors, and once again, mirrors equal Karen.
That's right. And she's screaming out into the mirrors, "Help me." silently.
Yeah.
But I thought the rides at the fair were nice. It's sort of young love in the theme park.
Yeah. Bit of romance going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, after the mirrors, they go. This is when she goes back to the chapel and runs into Tom Colley, and that's when we get all of the quotes.
Right. Yeah.
I love so much.
Is this at Tom Colley's place?
Yeah.
Oh, it was so creepy, man. When you see it for the first time, he's got animals tied up.
And there's like a woman's shoe on the ground.
Yeah, and they don't explain that either.
No.
So he's giving all these quotes about,
And he comes up to her too. She doesn't, he just has this expression and he's just like, oh, I got you now. Oh, and she's like panicking.
He reaches out that outstretched hand and touches her blonde hair.
And he goes, oh, baby. No, he goes, you ain't no ghost.
You ain't no ghost. And at this point, you realize he's a simpleton.
Yep, that's
a
right.
very sort of, like you say, Forrest Gump type simpleton.
Yeah, he didn't go full retard. He's more Forrest Gump than Simple Jack. Karen and I can complete each other.
What was your other line?
I was like,
animals is like...
Oh, yeah. Animals is like a box of chocolates. You can hang them up dead in your room. Yeah, sorry.
It's so good. It's so true, though.
You can hang boxes of chocolates up dead in your room. Absolutely.
Well, he's healing the animals and he's burying them.
That's true. Well, that's the thing he says. Well, I find them like that. I buries them. Then why didn't he bury those ones? They look like they were dead for quite some time.
Yeah, that's weird, true.
Unless I leave them ones up to scare all the other ones.
And was this like the ring around the rosies bit?
Yeah, and this is where he actually explains what happened. And that they were doing a very sort of seance-y secret society thing. And they cut to John Keller doing his speech. And I love that speech so much. It's so hilarious.
Will you be one of us speech?
Yes. Karen Elwood, you've been brought to this place to prove yourself worthy of our secret society. We number only 3. Only 3.
Yeah.
We 3 alone have passed this test of courage. Many have tried and failed. Like his cat whiskers or something, I don't know. But you must not remove the blindfold. You shall hold hands around you, and you must not break our circle. And it just goes on and on and
What's going on?
and it gets to the question like, we're looking at you, Karen Elwood, willing you to be as one with us. We ask the question, do I make you feel horny?
It's the dad.
Oh, no, wait. Sorry. No. Say no more. Is this person worthy? And that's when all the stuff hits the fan.
Yeah. So they get the lightning bolt and the bell crashing down, and there's the mystery as to what actually happened.
And he swears that he didn't see it hit her. She had disappeared before then.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And this is when...
So Jan goes back to Mrs. Aylward's place to reveal her findings. And at that point, Mrs. Aylward shows her the music box. And it's the same music as in the intro.
Yep. The creepy...
And in the pond scene.
Creepy music.
And at this point, the mum freaks the hell out. I don't know. She just loses it. We're leaving right now. Howdy ho ho. I'm American.
We're getting out of here.
And of course there's a storm. Lol.
Yeah, just suddenly there's a storm and the bridge and the car stops in the middle of the bridge.
Yeah.
And they get out of the car and laser beams destroy the bridge.
Yeah, and this miniature car explodes. I love that.
Oh, was it a miniature?
It looked very Indiana Jones.
And they're back at they go back to the house to sleep there
to recuperate, but the mum shakes her. Stop it this minute.
Yeah,
shaking her around.
And apparently that's a reshoot.
Oh, was
Because
it?
apparently originally it was a lot more violent, like she slaps her.
What? Really?
Yeah, but Disney didn't like it, so it was more of a shaking thing.
All right.
Yeah. Because, Jan...
Love slap, baby, love slap.
Well, Jan is just continuously going up to everyone and telling them that Karen is alive and that they need to help her get Karen. Anyone who will listen or not listen.
Yeah.
Back at the house, the haunted house, so to speak. Though it's not really a haunted house, is it? You don't really get much of the house being haunted. Though you do. It's more about the woods, isn't it?
Yeah, but it sort of shifts and chops and changes because at this point, Ellie wakes up in a trance and she sort of walks off and you don't know what happened to her, but Jan wakes up and follows her with the candle and it's this eerie silence. And you just hear the sound of the soap in the mirror and you just see that she's writing nearly too late. Is that what she writes?
Oh, no, or is it something tomorrow?
Yeah, sorry, do it again tomorrow. And she's saying the words nearly too late.
Yeah.
And at that point, Jan knocks over the bath salts and it crashes.
Yeah.
And it jolts you out of and Ellie both at the same time, because it's so quiet. That's really pure suspense. I love that.
And that's when it all starts to come together. When
In Act 3, hey, ho, oh, bo, hey, ho, oh, bo. It's awful, man.
I ran out of ideas for this one. I just had coming too late.
Coming.
It's coming.
What was the line before? Get to the
chapel. Get to the chapel.
It's good.
But yeah, so
And Mike picks up the phone. Jan, what's wrong? Do you want to talk about it? This is so casual.
he is, isn't he? Oh man. But so she manages to convince them all to get to the chapel and they all show up just in time and she convinces them that they have to get back into their circle and recreate the initiation ceremony.
Well, I thought the dialogue that she used to convince people was quite good. Like, whatever's haunting Ellie and me will never leave us alone. And lock yourself away in that jury house, a prisoner of your own guilt.
Yeah.
Those were kind of cool things, like with Mr. Keller. And he was quite good acting.
The script in this was good.
Yeah, good dialogue.
It was a good script.
The circle must return home. The magnetic pull of the eclipse. Oh, that's the lines. Okay. This is where This is where Ellie appears and she's full on possessed at this point. And she reveals that she is the Watcher.
Well, no, she's possessed by the Watcher. She's speaking as the Watcher.
Speaking as the Watcher, yes. It's not an oboist at all.
No. That's right.
Bitterly disappointed.
All along. And an oboe starts to appear next to her. And this is where we get the... this is where this pillar of light appears. And it...
Yeah, and he's saying, he must return home, or it must return home, and the magnetic pull of the eclipse is what transferred our positions with Karen. So there's a little bit of science behind it. A little bit of science, a little bit of supernatural type stuffy wuff going on. Supernatural.
But it was ambiguous enough that you didn't have to think too hard about it.
Yeah.
But it was enough to just say that there was an entity and they swapped places and they needed to swap back.
And of course, Mary, at this point, she's the weakest link. The pillar of light appears and then starts blowing wind. She freaks out.
Yeah. And, to be honest, in the alternative, I can understand why she breaks the circle.
Yeah, you don't actually know what part of that
was one thing and what was the other.
Yeah, what the acting came from.
I don't think they reshot the whole thing. I think they reshot parts of it.
Should we talk about the next ending then?
Yeah, so just to close it off, the pillar of light goes in between them all and Mike thinks that they got to break the circle so that he can get Jan out in time. And he jumps through and grabs Jan just in time and the entity transfers across and they look and Karen is alive and in exactly the same state as she was when she got transferred across.
Karen, you're home. And so I thought it would be weird for Karen at that point. Like in the next blink of an eye, everyone, including her mother, is 30 years older. But they explain it a bit in the alternate ending. Tom explains, it's me, Tom. John's here and Mary.
Whoa.
But in the original, well, you know, the reshoot, this is what they released later.
Yes, so this is the canon ending that we've just been talking about. And in the canon ending, she sees her mum, her aged mum, who she recognizes, and that's when it ends. It just ends there. That's it, which is fine.
Yeah, and it was good.
Yeah,
it was perfect.
But this movie now is going to be a completely different film. So now we're going to talk about a science fiction film called Watcher in the Woods.
And what the hell, man? When I first saw that, it was after I watched the film, and it's so creepy, man.
I'm glad that you saw it after you watched the film, because it would have changed things completely for you if you'd watched it before that.
And I can imagine if you had watched that originally, I'm glad you didn't, because it would have been very scarring.
Well, it was, but it was okay. So, in the alternative ending, you don't get a pillar of light. You get an insectoid-looking skull-shaped thing with pieces of fabric for wings, obviously plastic, but very freaky looking. And
I had it as a cross between sci-fi and fantasy. Sort of looks like a xenomorph, but a ring wraith from Lord of the Rings.
That's pretty good, actually. Yeah.
And it opens its wings and embraces Jan.
Yeah.
And then it just takes her off into another dimension.
And disappears.
And it's just like, where's Jan? And the mum comes rushing in.
Yeah, that's...
She went away.
She went away to where Karen was.
It was a seance, and they explicitly say it was a seance there.
Yeah. Well, apparently there was a lot more terminology about it being witchcraft.
The occult.
There's a lot... Yeah. That they cut out in this version. So there's a lot more in the entire film that they cut out around that type of stuff. But I don't know if there's any footage of that stuff, but there is footage of the end.
Yeah.
And I don't know, did you get to see the footage of them going off into the alien world?
Yes. Yeah. The reshoot. So that was all made just for this DVD special edition, because they didn't have the technology back then to make this transition. What happened was the alien flew her across like dimensions, and you see the scape, the landscape of this alien world. And it arrives to the center point where Karen is held in this
broken down spaceship.
The stasis, basically, right? A stasis field?
In a broken down spaceship.
What do you mean?
So apparently, and this is what gets explained later, is that something to do with the seance that they did was timed at a time with the eclipse that broke the spaceship and this thing was an alien, not a creature or anything. It's an alien from another dimension that ship crashed and it got stuck in their world. And somehow, I don't know how, Karen got transferred across and it's stuck in our world and she's trapped in a stasis sort of reverse matter state.
Yeah.
And he brings Jan there so that she's positive matter and they cancel each other out, and that takes them back to Earth.
Yeah, that's what I heard. She was negative energy. There was a line in the ending, and Jan was positive energy, and they cancel each other out. I didn't know it was a broken down ship, though. They didn't really show that it was broken in any way.
Yeah, I think that was something. It might have been written in the script or something.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly where I read it.
Because it looked all right. I don't know. It looked kind of all right. Special effects wise.
But can you imagine a film that's all up until that point has been completely about supernatural stuff, and then it's just like science fiction-y aliens and inverse fields and stasis fields. It'd be like,
yeah.
It's, oh man, it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's so awful. Well, what did you think?
I don't know. I don't really know what to think because I saw it out of context.
Yeah.
And like, there's actually all these scenes as well that were before, which do change the color of the film. They were more occulty, if you know what I mean. They were more, like you say, witchcrafty. And so who knows? If you watch this film in 1980, I would have been freaked the heck out.
I think that
if I saw that.
Yeah. Well, I've heard the reviews were really scathing of the original version, like really awfully negative towards it.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I can't remember, and I wasn't able to get a concrete idea of whether people were laughing at how bad it was or people were getting freaked out and leaving the theaters or something. But I don't think it was the same. I don't think it was the latter. I think it was more of it was so ridiculous and jarring in that it changes the genre completely and it's just like completely out of the blue. And that's when they did had to do all the reshoots and release it a year later.
This definitely freaked me out though, seeing that thing. It was like, wow, this was the first thing that they put into cinemas, man. This is really out there for Disney.
Yeah, that's true. It was pretty out there. I didn't think it was that scary. I thought it looked freaky, but I didn't think it looked scary. I thought it looked pretty fake.
Oh, I was terrified by it. It was sort of like, is this really what happened? Like Ellie wasn't Ellie at all. It was like that thing. If you can imagine like that thing appearing, it sort of does justify Mary's reaction.
Well, Ellie wasn't in that sequence.
That's what I mean. Like, you just see that thing. And it's like, wow.
Yeah, just comes up the aisle.
That's so freaky. But that brings me to the original opening. I don't think I brought that up.
Sorry.
The Watcher is sneaking up on the little girl, scaring her, and the girl drops her doll, and the doll spontaneously catches fire, and the credits were played over this doll's melting face.
Which is a lot more traditional, I would say.
Yeah. So you got that music playing her melting face. Oh my gosh. It's a different film, hey.
It is such a different film, yeah. Yeah. So crazy. So how did you feel about it then?
Oh, I loved it, man. There's so much suspense and absolute pure horror in this. The 80s horror vibes. I wanted to ask you, hey, like, I find that there's been a bit of a resurgence with 80s horror, especially with the release of Stranger Things, celebrating, Stephen King and, all of that sort of era of 80s horror. What else? Like The Evil Dead and...
Yeah. Well, it's not just 80s horror. It's also... Well, there's a lot of things 80s. So absolutely, I agree with you. Stranger Things and all of that. But also...
And Dawn of the Dead and... I was wondering, what is it about this era that, the 80s... What was it about the horror in this era that was so great?
I have two separate thoughts on this. I don't have an answer, but I have two answers. One of them is that the people who are in a position now to do filmmaking and the people who watch films are I guess in a certain generational category, look back at the 80s with a lot of positive nostalgia, like people like yourself and myself. So what terrified us or scared us when we were young may not scare us now, but the idea of and the positive experiences that we've had of that time, it's that nostalgia that is coming back and we're re-exploring it, but with new stories. That's one of the things I can think of, because what that means then is that in a couple of years' time, we're going to get a whole bunch of nostalgia around 90s,
right?
Which I look at the apocalypse, basically, because the fashions and stuff that came out in the 90s
right.
were worse than the 80s. But we'll get grunge music again.
No, man, I don't think it will, because there was something very unique about this film that did spark a lot of the same vibes. I don't think it is just because we grew up in the 80s, because Stranger Things is a runaway hit of all, like, new millennials are watching it and they wouldn't have access to those older sort of paths of memory, I think.
That's true. Well, the other alternative is that there are the elements of the films themselves that lend themselves to being really good and really enjoyable. And there were ways of doing things, or there were directors during that period of time that they can now pay homage to, and those techniques that were used for those films are quite effective. And also in that period of time, you didn't have things like mobile phones and things that if you had plot devices, these things get in the way of developing the plot, because you've got instantaneous communication. You've got all of these things that you can't, it's harder to build suspense when this person has to get to a phone, or they have to let someone know, or, the lack of knowledge of something is what helps to build the suspense. We're in the, not society of knowledge, but we're in a time where knowledge is at our fingertips in a lot of ways. I mean, if you look at a lot of films that are coming out now, there's always a scene of them Googling up the monster.
Right.
You can't exactly do that in the 80s.
It's so true though, hey? The knowledge binds us in many ways.
So like in the 80s, you'd get an old book from like the 15th century or something like that, the Necronomicon, or, looking it up in a library. Those things are slower, and there's more a feel of diving into the depths of knowledge. Whereas let's look it up on Wikipedia is not quite as effective.
Yeah, that's so true. Hey, I can't remember. How did they explain the lore in this film? It was all through Tom, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it was left pretty ambiguous. So Ring Around the Rosie was, and the actual showing of the ceremony that they did
through flashback,
but that was really it. There wasn't much more to it. It was through flashback and through the music of just that tinkling music that they use as a through line for referring. It almost ties itself to the ceremony.
Yeah. So I did watch the remake, like I say,
yes.
2017, and I love Melissa Joan Hart, man. I adore her. She was the Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and this was sort of her directorial debut, like a feature film. And it was a film that she loved as a kid, so she wanted to bring it back for modern audiences.
I'm waiting on the edge of my seat.
But is this what we need? Is this what we really need is my question. Why don't we just revive the old films? They really are masterpieces. And there is a reason why this is so beloved, I think. Because I haven't seen it before. I'm watching it for the first time, and it's absolute classic. But I admire her efforts because... it was probably a very restrictive budget. Right. It was shot for Lifetime. It was a TV sort of movie. But I do feel it was played way too safe. Like, just the way the story was told. It's all just sort of wide shot to medium. None of these extreme sort of violent close-ups. And where's the suspense? There's this obvious link to Hitchcock in the original. Like, sometimes it's blatant with the psycho strings, for example, and the birds. But they this is all diluted in the remake. And what you fall back on is always the performance and the story. And if any of those elements are lacking, then the whole film suffers, I think. And in this case, it sort of lent too heavily on Jan and Mark. And you commented actually on it. There was this sort of needless backstory to Mike, but they really went into this sort of backstory, how he's like a farmer that isn't just a farmer. And,
oh, really?
More than a farmer. This is more than a little village. Miracles happen here.
I don't just pick up shit.
And we're just not as engaged with them. So there's that lack of warmth that Mike and Jan had. But I do think, definitely with the 80s horror, they took a lot of risks. And that's what it's all about. It's looking at all of these, alternate endings of these films. They went to a lot of effort to push the boundaries in this. They were performing a seance. It's no joke, dude. And this is the 80s where things were much more traditional, especially in America.
Well, the 80s was the satanic panic. There was a lot of lack of understanding of those things, and The Exorcist really started this thing around the fear of the devil and the occult and all of that stuff. And
yeah, right. I remembered that as well. So like all of the new things are very mild in comparison to these. They were really pushing the camera angles and extreme close-ups, and Betty Davis's just very stoic performance. There was no sort of melodrama in it. It was very still. I like that. And I've been watching these Dick Cavett interviews on YouTube. He's a really great interviewer. He had this one of Hitchcock, and he's talking about tension and suspense, and that it's very important to relieve tension as well through humor, like Ellie sort of with her throwaway lines about food and the motocross moment and the horse riding scenes. They add color and movement. And that's, very important to break up tension. And I sort of noticed that in this film, which is why I think it's really great.
Oh, I'm really glad you enjoyed it, man, because I was expecting you not to. Because I found it really hard to gather my thoughts on how I felt about this film.
Yeah.
Because I enjoyed watching it again, but I couldn't even really see the humor in it at the time after I watched it. Like, normally I'm looking for funny things to write or, not that what I write is funny, but you can always keep trying. But I was left feeling like I wasn't even sure if it was a good film or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not because I thought it was bad, but because I've seen it so much and I knew everything that happened in it that I could not distance myself from it, which has happened on a few occasions with these films. Some of them I can see again with new eyes, but this one, oh man, I found it really hard.
Yeah, right.
But I did enjoy watching it again.
This is high on your nostalgia meter, right?
I was really looking forward to seeing it again. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying not to watch it too soon, actually.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Why?
Yeah. Oh, because I wanted to sort of have it more fresh in my mind when we had a chat about it.
Oh, I see. Right. What I loved about this film is the unknown. And I think we talked about this. I'm not sure. The fear really comes from the imagination.
Yeah.
And it's like hearing the oboe, but not knowing that the oboe player is hiding in the woods, watching your every move. You quickly turn and look for him, but all you see is the wind.
Yeah. No, it's pretty great. That whole mystery, the unexplained, the wind.
Yeah.
The woods. And you never really get to see what the monster looks like except for this pillar of light. That's as much as you get to see.
Yeah.
I like that so much more than them actually showing the monster.
That's so true. You're very right in that. It's the only proper ending.
Yeah. Well, man, I'd give it pretty high. I think I'll give it 9 out of 11.
Cool,
so not quite as high as Aladdin, but
yeah,
it's still pretty good.
Oh, nice.
So what have we got next, Derek?
Oh, it's very exciting. There's a new Terminator film coming out, so to pay homage to it, we're looking back at Terminator 2 Judgment Day from 1991.
Oh, man. That's going to be good.
Oh, it's such a classic. And in the new one, they're bringing back Sarah Connor and Arnie.
They are. And I'd say that, I was going to say that they bring back Arnie, but the thing is that he's never left.
He's never left.
So,
yeah.
So, yeah, well, cool. That's awesome, man. Well, thanks very much for this one. And thanks to the listeners. I hope you're enjoying how things are going.
Thanks, man. Love this film. It was really great.
Cool, man. All right. Have a good one.
Have a good night. Thanks, everyone. It's leading up to Halloween.
That's right. It is Halloween.
Are you celebrating?
We're going to be doing a very American...
Hardy har har.
Hardy har har. That's what we're going to say every time a kid comes to the door. Trick or treat. Hardy har har.
I think you should do a little shoot with the puppies in a pumpkin. That would be amazing.
Well, we actually have a suit for the puppies that is a pumpkin.
Oh, what? Yeah. I was just joking, but no.
I know.
It's sorted.
It is cute and horrific, and I didn't pick the suit. So I'm going to distance myself from that.
But your costume, on the other hand.
Oh, my costume. Yeah, I'm going as a serial killer, so I don't have to get changed.